to start with a story that's told about Reb Sholom of Belz. He had a synagogue outside of Lviv, and I want to share this story because it really hits home for me. It's a beautiful lesson there. So it relates to Parshas Bemidbar, that the task of carrying all the equipment for the Mishkan, task of breaking down the Mishkan, the sanctuary, and putting it back together, was done by the Levites. Today, and if you go into 99% of the synagogues in America, the task of the manual labor is not left to the members of the community, but it's to the hired help. You know, the higher people you hire, a contractor, or you hire the workers. But the task of doing this, of building the synagogue and caring for the synagogue and cleaning the synagogue, it's not done by the members, but it's done by people who are hired out. And in almost all cases, they're not Jewish. And we're actually losing something tremendously. We're losing a great spiritual opportunity by just hiring other people to do this task. In our yeshiva, we actually don't have a maintenance worker. And that's not because we can't afford it, but it's because we made the conscious decision that everybody who comes here has to chip in and be involved. So let me share the story of Reb Sholom of Belz. So it says in the verse, Lavodas avodas hamishkan, it says to do the work of the Mishkan. So in that context, the story is told that once Reb Sholom of Belz's brother, whose name was Reb Rokeach, he came to Belz to visit their mother. And he found the Belzer Rebbe. Belzer Rebbe was working with the bricks themselves and mixing the cement to build the shul. He was working with the construction laborers. And he was very upset that that's what his brother was doing. He said, "This is what a Rebbe does? Don't you know that our sages say that once somebody's appointed the leader of the community, he's forbidden to partake in menial tasks in public. It's not appropriate for the chief rabbi of Israel to be seen, like sweeping the floor and scrubbing the floor." So he said to his brother, "How are you able to do this?" So Reb Sholom of Belz said, "I'm going to tell you the story." He said, "When I used to live in this town called Skol, I had two friends with whom I studied Torah. And we heard," this is relevant to Shavuos as well. By the way, if people want to join us on Shavuos night, you can either join us for the meal at the beginning of the night, or you could join us starting at 1:30 in the morning. We're going to be studying Torah from 1:30 until we daven at 5:15 for the sunrise prayer service. So you could join us at 1:30, 2:30, 3:30, 4:30, whenever you want. So anyway, Reb Sholom of Belz said, when I used to live in Skol, I had two close friends. And these two close friends and we used to study Torah. And he said, I got a message from heaven that if we were to remain awake for 1,000 nights, then at that point, Eliyahu Hanavi would come and reveal himself to us. So of course, we wanted to reach that high spiritual level. So what we did was we all decided to stay awake for 1,000 nights and study the Torah. So 300 nights into it, we lost one of the guys. He said it's too much for him. And then 800 nights into it, we lost the second guy. Finally, by the 1,000th night, I was the only one left. And on that night, there was a storm. And the storm came and it crushed everything in the base medrash. All the lamps went out. And I would have gone home for sure, but there was a hurricane outside. I wasn't able to move. So I staggered up to the Aron Kodesh, up to the Holy Ark, and I started to cry there. I was so afraid. So Hashem saw my emunah. This is what the Belzer Rebbe says. Hashem saw my emunah, and Hashem began to teach me the halachos. And the very last law that I heard straight from Hashem that night was how to build a shul. How to build a shul. So then, if that was the last halacha I heard straight from Hashem, how can I then give this task over to somebody else? I want to be involved in this holy task myself. So he said, and then the Reb Sholom of Belz said, if it was up to me, I would have built this whole shul from the foundations to the rafters all by myself. But I'm not able to do it, and that's why I hire these other people. And this was Reb Sholom of Belz. He said he wanted to be like the Levites who personally built the Mishkan every time and carried the Mishkan on its way. And they said that when Reb Sholom of Belz built his shul, he made it on a straight line. He measured a straight line to Jerusalem, and he looked at every single point across the line and saw that it never interacted with any idolatrous sites along the way. The other thing they say about when he was building the shul was that he saw that there were some Jews passing through his town, and so he asked them a message and asked them to stay and help him. Now, these people were not his Hasidim. They didn't even know him, and they weren't day workers, but he said, we need your help. And so, and they came along, and they helped him, but they wanted to leave, and they said, can we leave? He said, I'll let you know when it's time for you to leave. And they kept working and working and working, and then the message came that they were going to have crossed this river, and the river had flooded, and many people have been hurt in that accident. So the Belzer Rebbe had a vision that they should stay and help, and that's the reason why they stayed behind, and it was all from Ruach HaKodesh. So basically, the point of these stories, obviously, I don't think anytime I tell you a Hasidic story, the question of whether or not it actually happened is not the point of the story at all. The point of the story is, what is the story trying to tell us? In this case, the story is trying to tell us that the actual building of the shul, the actual physical participation in a sacred space, building of a shul or yeshiva, the actual physically participating in it, not just paying for it, is a great inyan, is a great segula, is a great mitzvah, is a great merit, is a spiritual activity. And I think in our religious communities, we've lost something in that we have outsourced this 100%. There is in our yeshiva a man who comes to our yeshiva to study and daven with us, and he's a electrician, but he also knows plumbing. So he personally asked if he could have the honor of putting in the toilet in our yeshiva. He wanted to personally do it. And there's another man who's on the Zoom who personally came and put in a toilet in our yeshiva. And a very great righteous act, because they wanted to be personally involved in the performance of this mitzvah. So I'm one of them. I don't know, he's too modest, I don't want to call him out, but thank you for those spiritual activities. Let me just pause here if anybody has any questions.